Hey guys, and down here, this is going to be my chapter review to One Piece 986, My Name. Now, all the chapters we got this week from My Hero, One Punch Man, One Piece, they were all straight bangers, One Piece included. So let's get straight down into it and talk about what happened and what was new. So, the Akazaya 9, that's my first scene. In this first scene, we see Kinemon and Denjiro roll up to the north side of Onigashima, where the rest of the Akazaya 9 are. And when they get there, they see Kanjuro lying face down on the floor, bleeding out, with Raizo and Kikunojo, both of them crying, as quite a few people hypothesized last week. The reason Kikunojo seems to have been crying is because it looks like she killed Kanjuro. And my question here, I think everybody's question here is Kanjuro really dead though? I mean, for someone who deserves a proper beating, for someone who's been a part of the story since, I think, well, we've at least heard of him since Punk Hazard. I think we actually saw him on the way to Dressrosa. We might have even found him in Dressrosa. But for someone who deserves a proper beating to get off screen like that, it feels a little disappointing. I can't help but think that Kanjuro and Orochi are both going to roll up in a few chapters and stab someone in the back. So I'm not really sure how that's going to go, but I feel like Kanjuro may still be alive. Orochi may still be alive. This chapter, we see Orochi's head once again on the ground, kind of emphasizing his death, I think. But it could also be like, don't remember this. Don't forget this guy. He still could be alive. So you know how it is with Oda. We never really know if someone's dead unless their fruit has reincarnated somewhere, or unless they died in a flashback and haven't been in the series for like 20 years. We get the reunion of Kinemon and Izo, with Izo saying he's missed too many chances for a glorious and meaningful death. And I was just like, is that what he's looking for? Is he actively trying to find somewhere to die? Obviously he's not. I think he's simply saying he's prepared to lay down his life should the time come, but it would be a little awkward to see Izo running out and just like going straight towards Kaido and being like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you, and then dying in the process because he's going for the strongest enemy. The next scene we got, I've named the Snakes of the Yamata no Orochi. So in this next scene, we see the conclusion of Kaido's offer to the samurai. Either join his crew or die fighting against Kaido's crew. And we see the 5,000 plus members of the Oniwabanshu join Kaido, represented by Fukurokuju. We see 5,000 samurai also join Kaido. So we have the Oniwabanshu with the ninjas, and we have the 5,000 samurai headed by this guy called Hote, who's the former captain of the Mimawari Gumi. And we see Hyogoro here going apeshit, cursing these spineless individuals. And I suppose all we can really do is agree with Hyogoro at this point. I thought seeing their shogun die, so the Mimawari Gumi, is it? Yeah, Mimawari Gumi. Yeah, so I thought the Mimawari Gumi guys, the Oniwabanshu, I thought seeing their shogun, or at least one of their own, being beheaded by a supposed ally would make them understand the situation they're in, would make them think of the people of Wano and, you know, who they pretend to serve, who they think they're serving, and think of them going into slavery and, you know, all these things that Kaido promised last chapter. I thought that would have spurred them into action, but in the end, we kind of see that they only really think of themselves, with the ninja and the samurai relieved by the choices of their superiors, Hote and Fukurokuju. So I hope they get what they deserve. They've got something coming towards them. I don't know what it is yet, but I really, really do hope they get what they deserve. And in this same scene, we see Nami and Carrot being detained pretty much where they were last chapter. While this is going on, Shinobu keeps going forward, having understood that Kaido is and always will be their true enemy, not Orochi or anybody else. So then this next scene, this was one of my favorite parts of the chapter, and it actually leads up to my favorite part of the chapter, but this was kind of almost favorite part of the chapter. But there was so much meaning in these panels. So My Name is this next scene. Kaido monologues a little to Momonosuke, talking about how Wano has neither a shogun nor samurai to serve a shogun. He talks about the foolish population who are partying into the night, not knowing that this is their last night of basically freedom. But the one thing that's nagged him all this time over the last 20 years is that this weak coward of a child is the son of Kozuki Oden, and he tells Momonosuke that this execution is meant to bring about the end of the old Wano, but then asks Momonosuke, what's your name? You never told me 20 years ago what your name was. I.e., he's asking him with like all this fluff around his question. He's saying, are you the son of Kozuki Oden or not? But there's more to it than that. He's giving Momonosuke a chance, this 8-year-old, he's giving him a chance to not only reject his heritage and save his own hide as a result of it, but also to reject the Wano he was raised in. So it's funny how we saw the Oniwabanshu with Fukurokuju, we see the Mimawari Gumi with Hote, they get asked basically the same question as Momonosuke, in a sense, where you can either show us your pride and honor, and Kaido even said to them, I wouldn't badmouth you for choosing to fight against me. I've seen the honor and the glory of your people. It wouldn't surprise me, and you could die as honorable men if you were to do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you did that, I'd understand. And they chose to save their own hides, to reject Wano, reject their shogun, reject who they are and where they're from, all for the sake of saving their own lives. Not even saving their own people, saving their own lives individually. But then you have Momonosuke here, given this choice, and he chooses the opposite. If you read the chapter, he chooses to not save his own hide, to say who he is. But I was like, the 8-year-old has more honor, has more claim to Wano than all of these other guys who deserve whatever's coming to them. Now, if Momonosuke says he isn't Odin's son, he gives up his identity, any hope of returning Wano to the glory it once knew. So for me, it would have been a situation where 2 deaths would occur with one phrase from Momonosuke, and one for Momo and one for Wano. Momonosuke thinks back on what his mother said to him, how he will one day carry the nation on his shoulders. He thinks back to the time Luffy said he was going to be king of the pirates, unwavering, firm in his belief. And he then thinks back to an occasion where he asks Odin to explain the origin of his name. Where did my name come from? Every child says this at one point or another. And Odin told him, and this is something that Momonosuke relays to everyone witnessing his execution at the moment. He says, Momo is a name that means second to none. And I was like, oh, I know where this is going. And he then announces that he is actually Kozuki Momonosuke. And he announces that he doesn't just announce his relation to Odin, he announces, I'm going to be the Shogun of Wano. And I was like, this guy is a bad man. Momonosuke did us all proud, did himself proud as a character. And Oda has written him really, really well at this point in time, just showing how much he's grown from who he's been around lately. He then starts crying, thinking about how he wanted to live a life where he could one day see his parents and they'd be proud of him in the afterlife. He thinks of Hiyori, his sister, and how he wanted to see her at least once before he dies. He thinks of how shameful it is for a warrior to cry, but he cries anyway. And then I saw on Reddit actually a user by the name of SmashMat202. He makes a solid point about Momonosuke, which I'll paraphrase. So Momo's whole life has been different to the great life that his father led. He's not a 1 in a million or one in a billion beast born to the world with all of these different gifts of like charisma, strength. He was a heartthrob. He was actually quite intelligent. He was able to use haki. All that stuff that Odin was able to do. This is not something that was given straight up to someone in Momonosuke's shoes. Momonosuke just doesn't have those abilities. However, people like Kaido and maybe even the Akazaya 9 to an extent see Odin in Momonosuke. They want more from him. They have these expectations that they've thrust upon him. However, Oda has been pushing this point that Momonosuke is not his father. He's not the same individual, and he's not a naturally strong, courageous, or wild individual. He can't take all of that pressure and responsibility that's been thrust upon him. So he breaks every now and again. He cries. He hates that he can't match these expectations and that he can't go see his sister of his own accord, which he probably really wants to do. But what he also does here in this one situation where he says, I am Kozuki Momonosuke, I will be the Shogun of Wano. What he does in this situation is he denies Kaido, the strongest beast alive. He denies him the right to call him a coward. He shoulders the responsibility of his name and his position of heir to the country, telling Kaido straight to his face, telling this Yonko straight to his face at 8 years of age, telling him that he won't roll over and accept what they've done to Wano. And on the biggest stage of his life, I think Momo has shown that he won't bow down to someone who's more powerful than he is, and he's willing to die for the honor of his people and his country. So he's selfless in this state. And for me, he's a lot more like his father. In this one scene, he's shown to be a lot more like Odin than even he knows. So I really, really like that scene. So then the final scene, I think I've named Take Up Positions. While all this is going on, we get to see everyone else is doing their own thing, and we get to see what they're doing. Luffy and Yamato are actually running towards the stage while Luffy fills Yamato in on the fact that Momo is still alive, on the fact that the Akazaya 9 is still alive. Momo is Odin's son. He then takes off her handcuffs using his advanced Buso Shoku no Haki, throwing them far away in case they explode, which they do. We'll come back to that in a bit. We see Who's Who and Best Girl Ulti making their way towards the stage, having heard Luffy and Yamato are making their way there. Ulti's got a bone to pick with Yamato, and Who's Who is probably still trying to capture Yamato, so that should be interesting. And we see Usopp and Chopper actually inside General Frankie making a beeline towards the stage to save Momonosuke, which was Usopp's decision. And what they've done is actually run straight into where the numbers seem to be partying up. So there might be an altercation here between Usopp, Chopper, and the numbers, which could turn out to actually be pretty hype. I want to see more of that. We see a drunken guard being slashed down by the Akazaya 9 as they approach the stage, with Law, Kid, Zoro all doing their own things in other locations. I don't know where any of them are. And we then go back to Luffy and Yamato, who have made it back to the main stage. A huge explosion going off behind them. And with this, Yamato finally realizes that Kaido was actually telling the truth. Her cuffs were explosive, and she rejects Kaido as her father, having confirmed that if she ever left Wano, her shackles would have actually killed her. The fact that she had the slightest hope that her father wouldn't actually do something like that to her is a little bit saddening, and I can see why Yamato would be so annoyed at her father for having done that. But I love the fact that Luffy actually got her name wrong as well. He calls her Yamao, so he's like, wait a second, Yamao, and I was like, Yamao, and she's like, my name's Yamato. So I thought that was pretty funny. But these next couple pages were really the best. First, Luffy pulls back Yamato, telling her that they've made it in time, they've reached where they were supposed to reach, but respecting the fact that this is not his fight to start, nor his war to start. So he respects that this means so much more to the samurai of Oden, the Akazaya 9, his 9 red scabbards, and Momonosuke, and that he lets them announce the beginning of the raid on Onigashima. It really feels like Luffy's kind of deferring his ownership here. He doesn't own this in the slightest, but the fact that he could have started the war but chose not to really shows how he's matured a little bit since pre-time skip. The final scene is Sunacchi. So Kaido seems to be surprised by Momo's response, which is something I really want to know more about. What Kaido thinks of Momonosuke. Like he's there putting on this guise of, at least it looks to me like a guise of, he thinks Momo is weak, he thinks he's a coward, he has these expectations of Momo, but every time he learns or sees something of Momo, he seems to be surprised by his response. And even this time he's surprised by Momo's response, once again becoming reserved, and he seems to be considering something, though I'm not quite sure what. As he does this, the Akazaya 9 explode onto the scene behind him. King is very quickly disarmed by Izo, who just shoots his hand and the sword flies out of it. Kaido is actually disarmed by Nekomamushi. And we get panels of all of the new Akazaya 9, new in the sense of Izo being there as well, as we see the mantra they used to recite when they were younger. Surrender your name, be as a child, put your life into this attack. I was like, oh, I know where this is going. Everyone pretty much knew where this was going with that mantra. And the next double spread we got was beautiful, with Denjiro and Kinemon leading the charge. The Akazaya 9 barrel into Kaido, stabbing him in the chest and kind of stomach area, barreling him right off the edge of the platform as they shout Sunacchi. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So Kaido tells them their swords will do nothing, but remembers the image of Oden as he almost killed Kaido. He seems to still be haunted by Oden to this day, despite telling everyone that how little he cares for this feud between the Kozuki clan and the Kurozumi clan, and for Wano in general. Either way, I thought this was the perfect moment to bring back that mantra of surrender your name, be as a child, put your life into this attack. It was just so well done, and I understand now why Oden introduced it so early, so it didn't seem like it was just like pulled out of someone's ass at the last second. And the Akazaya 9 are perfectly aware of who they're going up against. They most likely have a whole bunch of fear in their hearts. They have a whole bunch of frustration and anger, but they know who they're up against. This is Kaido. This is not a pushover. So this kind of reminding themselves of who they serve, what their duty is, preparing themselves to lay down their lives. They shout the most epic intro to a war anyone could have thought of. So that's how the chapter ends. I'm ready to see more of Ulti, more of who's who. They both want to go against Yamato. I want to see more of what the Akazaya 9 have actually done to Kaido. King, Queen, Jack, they're not going to stood still for very much longer. Queen and Jack actually were the most surprised. Jack, like, holy shit, the Mink Kings are still alive. And Queen's just like, what the heck are the Akazaya? Like, how are they still alive? So all of that good stuff. And all the rest of the Kaido's crew seems to, for the most part, be, well, the peons at the very least seem to be drunk enough to not be much of an issue. So we then have Luffy and Yamato there at the bottom, who will now see a falling Kaido. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to turn out, but we need Kid, Law, and Zoro to roll up to wherever these guys are, because I don't know I don't know. I couldn't say that they're in the center stage area, but I couldn't say that they aren't either. So let me know what you guys thought of this chapter. Let me know what you guys thought of this review. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully, with my Hero Academia review. So I'll see you guys in a bit.